much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation, conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment for Love Akron forever. Welcome to our live here at Love Akron. We're so glad that you all have decided to join us today. Man, it's a great day. The sun is shining, and I'm telling you, I'm excited about the fact that there are birds chirping. I left home without a coat on. So I don't know about you, but I feel better already just with the sun and the warm weather that we are having on today. You might have heard me coming in a little bit. We had a few technical difficulties today getting on. I believe that Dr. Smith is somewhere in the backstage, and we'll be bringing him out in just a little bit. But I'm Lori Porter. I'm the operations coordinator here at Love Akron, and I'm filling in for our fearless leader, Coach Kemp Boyd. I don't know if many of you have heard, some of you may have heard that he himself has COVID. And so he has been recuperating. He was in the hospital. And then I believe if he's not at home, he's on his way there. Now listen, no phone calls, no emails, no text messages. We want to just let his body rest. And if you're like me, I'm anxious to talk to him too, but I want him to be able to recuperate and 100% come back better than he was before. So to all of those of you that were praying for him, thank you, thank you. I know his wife, Stacy, his 6 children, his mama in Alabama. I know she is like, thumbs up, my boy is on his way home. And so we thank the Lord for prayers being answered, and for each and every one of you that knew, and for those of you who didn't, just, keep praying until he's back 100%. It's really interesting that after last month's interview with Dr. Doug Smith, who, by the way, is the Chief Clinical Officer with the ADM Board of Summit County ADM. And he came on last month and spoke with Coach Kemp to talk about the facts and the myths of COVID, the COVID vaccine. And so there's a lot of myths out there about it, but then there's also a lot of facts and a lot of studies that have been done to give comfort to those who will be taking the vaccine. And so I'm going to tell you all the way to the end of our time today. We've got great information about upcoming episodes, shows, and encounters. And so I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Not only are we asking that you like, but we're asking that you share and that you follow us on every social media platform. Well, without further ado, I'm going to just bring into our conversation today none other than Dr. Doug Smith. We are so happy to have him with us today. He had a bit of a tricky situation getting logged in. Hey, there you are. How are you?
Good, glad to be back. And I agree with you. The birds are singing, and it's why I let my dogs out, and I wanted to stay outside with them. So, but so
I know this is a great day that if you have a lot of laptop work that doesn't require paperwork, man, this would be a great day to sit out on the porch or on the deck, or even go to the park. Right. I love it. I think it's important for us, especially during this COVID season, Dr. Smith, that with all the various things that people are experiencing as it relates to mental health, even, that the sun, I've read somewhere, it really helps the endorphins in our brain, and it helps us to feel better after coming through such cold winter times. And then that with COVID and being at home, Lord have mercy, we needed a day like today. So I want to take a second and encourage you, if you're watching us, get outside. Even if you just walk up and down your driveway, go for a short walk and breathe in some of this good, fresh air. Well, Dr. Smith, you were with us last month, and I know Coach wants to bring you on every month so you can continually update us. And that's what these Love Akron Lives are all about. It's all about educating our community concerning the resources and various services that are out there for them. And so last month, you mentioned the fact that the work of vaccinations has been going on since as early as 1798 with, I believe it was Eric Gannett that began the work of creating a vaccine for smallpox. And so when we think in terms of vaccinations, it's not just learned. And we're not saying people should get the vaccine or shouldn't. We at Love Akron are not saying that, but we are really interested in educating and giving information. I don't want to, I just kind of want to do what Kemp did last month and just kind of turn you loose. I know we want to talk a little bit about the population of Summit County, who's been infected. What do those numbers look like? And then how does that look when we look at the overall population of Summit County? What percentage of our citizens in our communities have been infected? I know we want to talk about the kind of tests that were conducted in determining which vaccines and who should get them and who should not. I know last month you talked about there was no real study for those that were 16 and under. So we don't really suggest that any youth 16 and under receive the vaccine. And then I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the differences and the similarities between the vaccines. Now that was a whole mouthful right there, but if you'll just kind of talk to us, we are here to listen and to learn so that we can lead together.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Again, I very much appreciate the opportunity. I'll give you a few statistics, the negative side, then I'm going to tell the rest of the time will be the positive side. So the negative side, so in Summit County, as of late yesterday, we've had about 41,000 identified cases of COVID. And again, that's based on testing. So there were probably more, but not everybody got tested. Some people are truly without symptoms when they have COVID. We've had, the sad number is about 850 deaths just in Summit County. So this is a very real and serious illness. And just real quickly, I want to say also, I'm truly hoping Coach Boyd pulls through fast, gets out of the hospital, and moves on with his life. It's sort of a sad irony that we're talking about this on Love Akron and he's dealing with it himself. So I truly hope that he recovers quickly. So let me just quickly compare Summit County to Ohio. So Ohio has about 1 million cases at this point, identified through testing, about 18,000 deaths. That's a lot of lost lives. The United States, about 29 million cases with about 530,000 deaths. And worldwide, 117 million cases with about 2.6 million deaths. It's horrible. And so the light at the end of the tunnel really, and the hope for our light is the vaccine. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about is the positive side of things. Number one, our case rate has been dropping over the past 8 weeks. So we are doing much, much better. You've heard that the governor is setting targets for even removing the mask mandate, right? So we're looking at very positive future. I will touch on the variants in a few minutes just so you've heard it. But so far, at least, had very little impact anywhere in the country, but particularly in Summit County. So up to this point, about 17% of the state has been vaccinated. That's about 2 million people. That's at least shot number one. They've not all of those have completed shot number two, but they will in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because that's, as we said last time, that's how far apart the shots are supposed to be based on the science research. Summit County is running a little bit behind that in the 15.5% of our county vaccinated. That's about 85,000 people who've at least had vaccine shot number one. Currently, there is if you go on their website of public health, it's a lottery style. The great news, though, is that Akron has been identified as having one of the large so-called mass vaccination sites, which could go live as St. Patrick's Day next week, depending on vaccine coming in. That will be at the Chapel Hill Mall. Probably a drive-through approach, as we actually are doing right now in the Summit County Public Health Building parking lot. So, but they may be able to vaccinate as many as 3,000 people every single day by doing that approach. So we are truly heading toward a better opportunity for all of you to get vaccinated. Although I understand Love Akron can't say it, I will say it. You should get the shot. There's really zero reason. I'm going to give you some more understanding about why I say that. The state, by the way, also set up an easier to remember website now to go on and log on and find a pharmacy or your public health department. It's simply gettheshot.coronavirus.ohio.gov. Gettheshot.coronavirus.ohio.gov. I'm sorry, it's only like 3 letters, but at least it has a little bit of a ring to it. So there's that piece. I do want to tell you a little bit about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So this is the new one. I did not discuss this last time as it had not been approved for use, but it has now been approved. So the real quick basics, and I'll give you a little bit of breakdown on their study population as well, as I did before. So it is a single shot. So this is a huge relief for people who are a little bit reluctant to get 2 shots. This time it's 1 shot. It also has advantages for distribution across the country and including our county because it can be stored in a normal refrigerator like you have in your home or your residence. So that is clearly a better thing. It is very different in the sense of how they created the vaccine to be used in humans, but the same end result. So they have basically taken a cold virus, an adenovirus they call it, and they have modified it so it cannot cause a cold. You're not going to get a cold or COVID from this vaccine either. Remember, the other 2 vaccines do not cause COVID either. So neither does the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. They basically modified this virus, number one, it from being able to make you ill, and then they set it up so it then creates the spike protein. Same idea as the other 2 viruses, other 2 vaccines, and then that allows our bodies to attack the spike protein without really getting ill, but to create antibodies that we hope will allow our bodies to fight off any exposure we might have in the future to the COVID-19 virus. By the way, again, not only does the vaccine research go all the way back to the late 1700s, but this particular approach that J&J has used has already been used in other vaccines. They call it their AdVac vaccine platform, and it's been used actually for the Ebola vaccine and also currently investigational vaccines for Zika, respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, which is very bad in children, even in this country, so it's very important, and HIV vaccines. So this is not a new concept. So
Dr. Smith, let me ask you this then. So when we give consideration to that and the fact that this vaccine for the coronavirus does not actually have the virus in it, how does that differ from, let's say, the flu vaccine?
Great question. So a flu vaccine, most people, when they get the injections or flu vaccine, are getting a virus that has been killed. So you're getting the entire virus. It still can't give you the flu. On the other hand, your body then reacts to that. So what happens with a flu vaccine real quickly is every year, remember, if you think about the land down under, as they say, so Australia, New Zealand, they're having their winter when we're having our summer. So we're heading into the warm weather. They're going the other direction. And as they have that happen, they have their cold and flu season, that part of the world. And so scientists monitor to see what versions of the flu are hitting there. And then they use that to predict which variants of the flu virus to put in the shot. So every year you usually get a 3 or a 4 shot, but it's all killed virus to allow you to then make antibodies to the virus. And as you know, some years they miss it, right? So the wrong virus makes it to the United States, and we're like, oh, it's not hitting all the particular ones. This is very different because they are, number one, there's no virus at all. And any of these, so Moderna, Pfizer, now the new Johnson & Johnson, no virus. You can't get any illness from it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get side effects, as we talked before. You could get a sore arm, very common, although some people get that from the flu shot. That's very minor. So you get that virus, that piece. I have now, the last time I had shot number 1, I've now had both shots. I can tell you that even for me, I didn't feel perfect the day after the second shot. So I had a little bit of fatigue and maybe a little bit of muscle soreness. But truly, it wasn't even a whole day. By about 5 o'clock the next day, so maybe 30 hours from the moment I got the shot, I felt perfectly fine. So there's nothing that's way better than getting the virus and having to, if you get symptomatic virus. So, but great question about this. So this one also cannot cause the the problems that everyone's worried about. That nobody wants to get a vaccine and end up feeling, oh my gosh, now I'm suddenly ill. That's not good.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, actually, real quickly, because of that, let me tell you what's in it, because I think that helps people. So it has that, they call it a replication incompetent. Basically, it can't replicate and create a cold symptoms in you. Expressing that COVID-19 spike protein. Beyond that, it's got citric acid, a little bit of, we're talking tiniest piece, a little tiny fraction of ethanol to keep it from destroying itself, basically. There's none of the major allergens in it, including egg, so none of that stuff's in there. And the other thing I'll mention, you've all seen the controversy, so I thought I should at least mention it. It does not have stem cells in it. So there's been controversy. I think the Catholic Church is having issues with it as well. I'm not going to get into religion, but the issue is you should know that what really happens with these things is they have cell lines. This case, it's retinal cell line from the eye. This was a fetus that was in fact aborted way back in 1985 in the Netherlands. And it might have been a spontaneous abortion, by the way. I haven't read enough about that, but there's no stem cells. They took the retinal cells and they have kept that cell line alive all these years, and they use it often in lab studies to figure out how these things are going to affect human cells. It's the only way to do it, to be sure it's going to work. Before they go and test it in actual people, they have to do studies to make sure it's not going to be toxic in the lab. Pfizer and Moderna, by the way, also use a cell line similar to that. Interestingly, also from the Netherlands, all the way back in 1973. So they've been reproducing this cell line for decades, both cell lines. And so Johnson & Johnson, so just so you're aware, there is controversy, but it is not stem cells in the way that people are concerned that we're going to suddenly start requiring people or trying to make use of aborted fetuses. That is certainly not something being promoted by anybody. So I just want to touch that because you're going to hear that piece out there a little bit. It sort of just showed up last night. They did study similar to the other two vaccines. They studied about 44,000 people. The other two studied about 75,000 in combination. It is only 18-year-olds and older, so this one actually does not go into any children or any minors. And what they found was that there were no COVID-related hospitalizations or fatalities for anybody who had received the shot starting 28 days later. So it takes time for our bodies to respond and make immunity to it. They did have a little bit, they said, a little headache or fatigue, very, very mild symptoms. Actually, again, it's only one shot, so you're probably even less symptoms than from the second shot of Pfizer or Moderna. Now, you'll hear that it was only, in quotes, 85.9% effective against severe forms of COVID. But the reality is, as long as it keeps you from getting so ill that you end up in the hospital, that's way better than most other things we have out there. So that's very effective. It's also almost 82% effective against the South African variant. So, therefore, also, because they're very similar, the B1.351 variant, just to give you a numbers, don't worry about that. And then about 87.6% effective against the Brazil variant. So these variants are of concern, but we're thinking that the vaccines are all going to have an effect on many of the variants. We don't know for sure. This is the unknown thing. I can't tell you anything that the science doesn't know yet, but I just want you to be aware of that, there is that piece that's sort of looming out there. What happens if we have these variants?
Yeah. Let me ask you this too, Dr. Smith. There's something called the VAERS.hhs.gov,
Right.
and I think when I heard about that, I was amazed because I thought I didn't even know that something like that existed, where if folks are having side effects, are they encouraged to go to that website and then kind of put their information? So as you're talking about that, and I don't want to kind of throw you off, but I wanted to, whether you now or later, I wanted to make sure to say to folks that that website, which is a government auditor owned website that our tax dollars pay for. Yes. Could you talk to us about that? And then maybe we'll be able to put it up on the screen. I believe it's VAERS.hhs.gov. So it's VAERS, VAERS.hhs.gov.
Correct.
Yes. So out there.
Go to that. Yeah, if you, I will mention, I mentioned it last time briefly because what I pulled from there the last time, and I looked at it again 2 days ago, I guess, it was to make sure that we could see if there was any variable difficulties with any of these vaccines in any population in particular, but particularly people of color, as we obviously want to make sure people understand that this is safe for everybody. And so indeed, so far, there has been no differential negative effect on anybody, any population, including people of color. If you go to the VAERS website, you could either make it simpler and tell your healthcare provider, and they will put it in, or there is actually a quote report. I've actually got the site up in front of me as well. Report of an adverse event that you can fill out the form and send it in yourself. So if you feel more comfortable doing it that way, if you look here, it's this piece. It's a little fuzzy on the screen, but it says report number 2. Number 1 says contact your healthcare provider. Number 2, report the adverse event on the form. There it is. So, and the idea here, this is actually no different than what we've done with all other medications. So there is ongoing, constant study from patient report. We're all patients. We all go to doctors. So even doctors go to doctors, right? So we're all patients. So you're going to report these adverse events, and if there's enough of those, they end up in the database. And the VAERS are collecting everything. But if you were to look for aspirin, aspirin's list of side effects is huge, and the reason is it's been around for about 2,000 years, and so we've got reported since people started recording any data. It's been collecting data on aspirin, for example. So let me just mention the variants real quick because I know people get concerned about that. So in Ohio, the UK variant, which is the most common one now, that's the B117. There have been 61 cases. 6-1, so not a lot. Maybe there never will be. We hope not. That includes at least one case in Summit County, based on the data I saw. We've had one Brazil case in the entire state, not in Summit County, and we've had 0 South African variant cases identified in Ohio. So far, don't worry about the variants. Basically, so far, get the vaccine. Whatever one you get the opportunity to get, they're all very good. They will all make you safer. And they will not hurt you, other than, again, you might have a few hours or a day of fatigue or something, but that's not very common, and it's even probably going to be less common, I suspect, with the Johnson & Johnson, because it's only one shot, so you won't get re-exposed, if you will, the second time. You should also know that they're now launching, as of tomorrow, they are launching phase 2B, which includes anybody aged 50 and older. They've gradually been moving the age range down. So now that's a good sign. So now it's anybody 50 and older, irrespective of any other issues you might have, you can go get it. And again, I recommend you go on that website, gettheshot.coronavirus.ohio.gov, because that'll be the best way it'll guide you locally, so you can go to a local pharmacy or even our local public health department. The other good thing you may have just heard is now, because there's been enough people vaccinated to see whether that makes a difference, the great news is it makes a big difference. So fully vaccinated people do not need to quarantine or take a COVID-19 test if they've been exposed. So if you've been around somebody who ends up getting testing positive, but you've already been vaccinated, you don't have to worry about it, basically. That's great news from the science, right? Further than that, they've now said that if you're vaccinated and you want to have a small group, let's just have a small dinner party, because who's had any of those forever, right? Maybe sitting outside on a day like today, you could have over some people. And if you can even do it in your house, though, as long as with other fully vaccinated people, you can do that without physical distancing and without masks. That's a huge statement coming from CDC that vaccines actually work. I've been really waiting for some science, because otherwise you're like, so I got the vaccine, but I still have to wear a mask. I still, all the things you got to do. Now, I should tell you that the government, at all levels, particularly the federal government, is always going to be conservative. So when Dr. Fauci says, wear a mask no matter what, wear a mask in your house, that kind of stuff, he's got to say that. He doesn't know enough to not tell you to do that. So he's been very much on the conservative side in terms of making sure we're extra careful. Now, CDC has enough information to say, hold on, we can start to relax this, because people who've been vaccinated basically aren't getting sick again. There is something called breakthrough. What that means is, let's say that for some reason somebody tells me to go get tested. I've already been vaccinated, and I get a COVID test and it comes back positive. I feel fine. I'm not sick. That's called breakthrough. So it's unclear whether the tests are not right or whether there's actually virus in my body, and they actually do the expensive tests, and they have found virus in some of these people. But it's probably they caught it when they were exposed. Their body fought it off. They never knew they got it, and the test was there. So at least that evidence also says get vaccinated and you'll be okay. They're not saying that we should go to medium or large size gatherings. If you do that, so far they're saying wear a mask and do your social, or I prefer the word physical distancing in those settings. So just so you're aware, it's not a complete elimination of those rules. So
yeah, and I'm thinking, also Dr. Smith, that to our viewers and those that are here on the live with us, that conservative can't hurt. It certainly can't hurt. But as you were saying, for folks that have been vaccinated, if those people are all together, that they are saying, well, the chances of a spread of a virus pretty much does not exist. But in mixed company,
yes,
you still want to wear your mask. And my dad is 90. And so everybody laughs at me because I have these alcohol bottles everywhere. And I remember when COVID first started, I kept reading the back of Lysol and all the different things, and they showed you how you can make your own hand sanitizer. And I realized that 70% or more of the content was alcohol. So I just thought, I'm just going to spray it everywhere. And it's interesting, Coach was doing the live, and I came in the room and I didn't have the mask on here in our little studio area. And I ran back out and grabbed my alcohol, and that was long before we knew we had COVID. And was spraying it. And so I do want to encourage folks to continue to be careful and cautious, continue to notify the folks that you've been around if you do test positive, that you have tested positive, just those kind of precautions that we want, folks to continue to exercise so that we can, hopefully, Lord, wouldn't I love to have Christmas at home with my family this year and not have to sit 6 feet away and spray alcohol for 2 hours, right?
That's a great point. And let me add to that excitement, because I think it really is. So today, the NeoMed, that's our local medical school, the president gave his usual discussion. And one of the things he mentioned was at the rate we're heading, he believes that classes for the medical students, the pharmacy students, and I've heard this from several colleges, including Ohio State University, which has been I should say the Ohio State University, they've been very conservative as well, testing students once or twice a week while they've been there, that they are looking at normal classes in person in the fall. So that you're right. It feels like we're going the right direction. I think that's because we are. The data says we are. Let me just mention, so I don't forget to do it, the vaccine population that was studied for the Johnson & Johnson, because I did that before, and I think that's important for people to know. So this is from the CDC website, in case anybody wants to check the facts. But basically, they of course reviewed the entire Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which won't only be in the U.S., it's going to go worldwide. So the CDC is very, very interested in this country, but they then work at times with the World Health Organization to figure out, make sure it's working. So in this case, the vaccine was 58.7% white. Within that group, however, there was a fair amount of Hispanic or Latino, so 45.3%. So within that group, so you're aware, they did some overlap differently than I've heard it in the other two. This is CDC data. 19.4% Black or African American. So way even higher than the 10% we heard from the other two vaccines. And why is that? Well, they did studies in like 8 different countries. And that included Brazil, at least one of the African countries. So they went all out to try to make sure they hit a great diverse population. They have 9.5% American Indian, Alaskan natives, also higher than the other vaccine studies. They did have overlap, of course, in our melting pot here. 5.6% they listed as multiple races, 3.3% Asian, and then 0.2% were Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders. So again, to get a 19.4% Black or African American plus a healthy amount of white and then other mixtures, very diverse population. Again, about 44,000 people studied. And as they start to give out the vaccine, we'll rapidly find out unusual, but we've not seen that with the other ones. It's really, oh, and by the way, it was 54.9% male, 45% female, and then they had some small group that didn't list their sex, and that nowadays that gets to be a question that people don't always want to answer. So just so you're aware of that, why that would be. They also had about 2/3 in the age 18 to 59-year-old age range, and the other third was 60 years and older. So they also are pretty diverse on that to really try to match who might get this vaccine. And again, my read of this, just as I read the other ones, is they truly went all out. They made every effort to try to get a diverse population so we would all feel comfortable no matter what our background is. And most of us are mixed, of course, if you think about it. Whatever our so we try to draw lines on forms to check a box, but the reality is it's pretty mixed. So, but I think people need to understand that. So again, my message is still the safest posture, unless you can hide in your house continuously, which nobody wants to do anymore. I'm certain of that, even though people who started off thinking they were going to do that, is get the vaccine if you can get it, wherever you can get it. It doesn't matter really whether it's Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, or Moderna. And the only differences there might be the 1-shot versus 2-shot regimen. And I do think they're hedging a bit on people over 60 that have a lot of comorbid medical problems, because they didn't have quite enough people. They had a lot over 60, a lot with all the medical, to say, well, is it quite as good as the others? And that's one that in that case, if you're concerned about that for yourself, it's probably a question for the public health department. They're going to get more data, I'm sure, and or your care provider, to say, hey, if I have a choice, hey, now that they're I saw a funny quote that basically said, soon we will be swimming in vaccine. I don't recommend that, by the way. But maybe the weather's getting better. We can look forward to maybe jumping into a pool, or I usually have a fake background of the ocean on my Zoom calls. Maybe that ocean or something. I'm not even sure where it is. But I think we should. The other thing, by the way, is if you still want to get tested and you happen to like technology, and you happen to have the Amazon devices in your house, you can actually say simply, Alexa, where can I get tested for COVID-19?
I found a few options.
She can tell you.
CVS Pharmacy on Darrow Road.
She can tell you.
She is telling me.
And CVS Pharmacy on Darrow Road.
So it listed, she listed, you probably can hear, she listed 3 pharmacies for me. So my point is, so that's for testing, that's not for vaccines, but I think that's coming. That's why I mentioned that. It's kind of interesting technology. And the first time I told somebody that, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I have an Alexa, not obviously that close to the computer, but close enough that it heard me and started talking while I was so anyway, so if you think they're not listening,
she and Siri are everywhere, whether you want them to be or not, always in your business, right?
Yeah, you guys. So if you think they're not listening, they are listening. But anyway, so I wanted to make sure we covered at least those points, and the fact that there's been from the VIRS system, as you nicely mentioned. So thank you for that. That we're not seeing any particular population. We're not seeing anybody actually getting any major problems with the vaccine, but therefore also not any particular population who's discovering there's some weird side effect or problem that nobody anticipated from now over 100,000 people who were tested in the 3 studies for the vaccine before any of them were released.
Wow. I'm thinking, I've heard some stories about individuals who had the test. It made them severely ill. I think that that's a concern that people have, trying to figure out, I had a bad reaction to the flu shot. So I have never, other than that 1 year, and I thought I was going to die, to get rid of the flu. It took me about a month. And so I've never taken it. And I was in my 20s then. So we don't want to talk about how old I am today, but that was a lot of years ago.
Me too.
I'm wondering, can you help ease the minds of folks who are, at Love Akron, we don't have a position on it. We're not telling people to or not to get vaccinated. We are just here on this platform to share information, to raise awareness. But could you tell us a little bit about what the findings have been concerning individuals who have had a abnormal or not usual response to the vaccine?
Sure. So there's basically two things that can happen. So there has been a very small group of people, but one is enough, right? Especially if it's you, it's one too many, who have had an actual allergic reaction. So even though I mentioned none of the 8 big allergens, that's the food allergies, eggs, milk, and peanuts and so forth, none of those, shellfish is included, none of those are in any of the 3 vaccines that are now, or at least about to be available for Johnson & Johnson. And yet they've had a few people, and it really has been a few in England and then here, had an almost, or maybe even without treatment, an anaphylactic, true full-blown, potentially fatal reaction. That is horrible. It has been, again, out of the so many now, millions across the country, and of course even more in England because they started before we did. It's the tiniest fraction, and I think they still don't have a great understanding of it. So if you've ever had, this is the recommendation, if you've ever had an anaphylactic reaction, that is, your throat closes up, you have trouble breathing, that's not hives, not severe, but on to breathing issues, and then you need an epinephrine pen, right? So if that's the case, you should probably, they're saying people should get it, but get it like in a doctor's office, or get it in a safe environment in the emergency department at SUMA or Cleveland Clinic or something, so you can make sure that if you had a problem, you would immediately be saved, because really Benadryl and epinephrine will have solved that problem. And I've actually not heard that anybody, by the way, has died from the reaction, because the places were ready for this. People were ready, and even public health was ready. They told us once you got your shot to sit in the parking lot at least 15 minutes, 30 if you wanted to be more cautious. They had somebody, all you had to do was honk your horn, because everybody was sitting in their own cars, honk your horn, and they had somebody who would come out immediately to help you. So that's, again, made me feel safer personally as well, because I've never, thankfully, had that reaction. I don't want that to be the first time, right? So, but it's very rare. So the other one is interesting, because I've seen a few cases. I know one person personally got the vaccine, and like a day later felt like she had COVID. And this was somebody actually works up at Metro Health, so it wasn't locally here, and it turns out they said, well, I don't want to get tested. I just had the shot. She went in. What had happened was just the time overlap. She had gotten COVID from somebody, doesn't know where, got the shot, but the shot again takes 10 to 14 days to start to build immunity. And even the second shot, you need another 14 days to get full immunity after you've had both shots. And if you look at the CDC guidelines, you'll see it says fully vaccinated means both shots and at least 14 days later. So she had to get ill and the shot. And so I would argue that any other cases I've seen as the flu shot as well, it's the same problem. People actually already have been exposed to the flu, they get the shot, and they go on. I don't blame it. This is like a food, right? If you've ever had a food and you got sick from the food, your brain will tell you never eat that food again, even though it might have been a stomach virus or something, right? We forget a lot that we are also animals, and so we will react to those things very strongly. But in general, that's the reason that the science has found behind actual negative reactions to vaccination. Again, apart from the sore shoulder, the herpes zoster, that is the shingles or Shingrix vaccine, is a 2-shot series. And many people say they don't feel very good for about a day after the second shot of that either. Not a horrible reaction. They don't feel good. So a similar idea that your body's building immunity. And in fact, the proof of that somewhat is that younger people who get the vaccine are more likely to have those reactions the day after the second vaccine than people over 60, because their immune systems aren't rolling as fast. If you rev up as so many more, I should say, of that individual group have not had a problem with even the second shot. So, but yeah, very good questions, because you're right. You have a sense, I got the flu from the flu shot. Scientifically, that is truly impossible. And let me go back to the other, because I think it's very important. As much as maybe we all tired. Probably not a maybe. We're all tired of wearing masks and all this other stuff. Think about the value, though, of what happened. It has allowed us to drop the COVID rate, but think about the fact that there's been hardly any flu, hardly any cold during this cold and flu season. I mean, so your alcohol works, by the way. So Purell, the brand name, but there's all sorts of brands now of that, of course, is 62% or higher. I think 70 is ideal, which is isopropyl, that's rubbing alcohol, 70%. It will kill all of these viruses, including COVID, including the flu and so forth. Lysol, of course, does it extremely well. I think it says 99.9% or something on the can if you can find one. And actually, I tend to have my weekly Walmart trip. And last weekend, I took a picture of the shelf full of Lysol cans. I hadn't seen that in a year, and decided that means we are definitely headed the right direction. If there's any indication, that's to me a big indication that we're going the right direction. Excellent.
My son said, "Mom, you are spraying me like I'm a cat." I'm like, "See, buddy."
Don't drink it.
Yeah, Dr. Smith, what a blessing you have been to us today, helping us to educate folks on the myths and the facts of COVID. I'd love to, maybe in our next conversation next month, you all that are here with us, just know that we'll be back every month that Dr. Smith will give us to continue this conversation of myths versus facts. He is the Chief Clinical Officer for the Summit County ADM Board. And so, Dr. Smith, I'd like to just give you like 2 minutes to have any final, whatever you'd like to say to our viewing audience, to encourage them, those that are considering taking the vaccine but feel a little nervous about it. And maybe some that have said, I'm not taking the vaccine, maybe it will, encourage them to maybe think differently about it. But if you could just give us 2 minutes, final words.
Happy to. So, one, I think we need to be careful not to try to make people feel ashamed if they don't want to jump on the vaccine right away. My best analogy to this is adoption of new technologies, right? So there's called early adopters who may get their Amazon device the minute it's released. And I'm probably closer to that category than some. There are others who never, ever want to get that device. And then there's a lot in between. Well, I heard it's working, or hey, I know I can ask it where to get a test. They may decide to adopt it. I think the vaccine's the same deal. It's okay to have waited to say, let me see if it works. Let me see what's going on. My argument at this point is you've waited long enough. You've been doing these vaccines since late December. So it's been going on quite a while. That means millions and millions of people have received the vaccine. There's a great system to report if there's been terrible bad outcomes. There have been none. People are, other than, again, potential allergic, which is very rare. And therefore, my final thing is just, go to get the shot, .coronavirus.ohio.gov, or use the Summit County Public Health Department website. There's a very obvious COVID section on there, very great information. Donna Skoda, Chris Barker, and her team are doing a great job with the vaccine they have. Right, the third leading step has been the fact that we can't get a vaccine as fast as people want it. And the other thing, if you're curious about it and you're wondering, gee, is anybody really getting this? All you need to do is drive over to the Summit County Public Health Building, ADM boards in the same building, and watch the line of cars. You will genuinely see lots of people of all walks of life and all ages at this point, at least age 50 and up, getting the vaccine. And so if you're doubting that this is just some kind of propaganda, every day we see a line of people. Yesterday, some of the law enforcement, Talmadge Police Department and others were there in line getting the vaccine. So we're trying to get this out to as many people as possible. And if you're wanting to wait and get it easily, the easiest probably is going to be the Hill Mall when they open up the large vaccination site, 3,000 a day, and they'll certainly be doing a big marketing campaign once they know they're going to have vaccine to do that, and you'll do it through your safety of your car. You're going to drive up. Very likely that's how they'll do this. You drive up. They make sure your information matches what they know. They've actually got little iPads and stuff, fancy stuff now. And then you'll get your vaccine. You will wait again for 15 or 30 minutes to make sure you're safe, because then they have people there ready to give you epinephrine if you need it. Again, it hasn't happened here that I've heard anybody actually, but you need to know it's safe. We all need to know that. And then they will, by the way, 2-shot regimen, they will also schedule your second shot then. You don't have to wonder, how am I going to get the second shot? Which, by the way, in the beginning, how it worked. People were wondering, where am I going to get the second one? If they got it, say, in January, there was a question. Now that's fixed. And that's just technology catching up to all of this. So I'll also say, if anybody's really concerned and just has a question that they just are afraid to ask on air, please reach out to me at the Summit County ADM board. My email is very simple. It's just Doug Smith, all one word, at admboard.org. Very straightforward. And I'm happy to try to help you think about that. So.
Excellent. Well, I tell you, I almost can't wait for next month. I mean, this time flew by, but thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for taking time out of your very, very busy day to hang out with us right here on Facebook and YouTube and other social media platforms. We will see you next month. Thank you. Well, to those of you that are still out there, just sit tight for a second. We've got some information we want to share with you, and then I'm going to give closing remarks.
Looking to take your love for Akron to another level? Start by signing up for Love Akron's monthly emails by visiting loveakron.org. You'll get updates about all the latest Love Akron happenings. You'll learn the ways you can help unify the colors, cultures, and congregations of our communities to see greater Akron thrive. You'll meet change makers from around the city, plus gain insight on how they're propelling Akron forward, making it a better place to live and work. You'll learn about Love Akron's partnerships and have an opportunity to connect with local organizations actively making a difference citywide. You'll be inspired through Kemp A's monthly Coach's Corner videos, and so much more. Visit loveakron.org to sign up for our e-newsletter today. That's loveakron.org. And remember, if you don't do anything else today, love Akron.
For being here. Thank you all for being here with us today. I just want to remind you that the first, second, and fourth Wednesdays, we are right here with Love Akron Live, bringing information to those of you that live in the greater Akron area and beyond, sharing with you the many resources that are available to help our city thrive. Well, we won't be here next week. We do a private group called the Jedi Council, and that's an amazing group. We'll be telling you more about that sooner. It's going to help folks in the marketplace. And so the week after, on March 24th, we're having Partners Week. And so Matt Reed from Direction Homes, Brian Roach from Alexander Body and Fender, Michael Irby, the president of 100 Black Men of Akron, and Ann Ream from Summit County Children's Services are partners with Love Akron. And they're going to come alongside of us and talk about how they have benefited from partnership, what their organizations offer to our city. And then don't forget, we're here the third Thursday night of every month, a collaboration with 100 Black Men of Akron and Love Akron. We do an episode, a show called Connection versus Collision. Where do we go from here? Akron 2021. And in honor of Women's History Month, we will have some powerful women that will be on our panel to talk about how they are impacting the lives of folks in our community. Well, sitting in for our beloved leader, Coach Kemp Boyd, well, those are some awfully big shoes to fill. So I hope I did him justice. I want to ask you to continue to pray for him and his family as he is recovering from COVID. We know God answers prayer, and so he's home from the hospital, but we're not going to bombard him, right? We're not going to email and text nor all of that. We're just going to pray and give him at least 2 weeks to recover. Coach, I know you're watching, so we want you to know that we love you and we're praying for you praying for a speedy 110% recovery. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us on social media. Lori Porter, Operations Coordinator, signing out. I'll see you next week. Well, not next week, but March 24th. We'll be right back. See you later.
Stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you got to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation, conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.